everyone, I'm Sarah, back from the West Lincoln Public Library with another book review for the month of July. Now, this particular book was one I will say was completely off my radar. I actually did not even know it existed until we processed it here at the library for ourselves. It is this author's debut novel, and I must say it is quite a stellar introduction, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing anything they produce after this. This is a book that when I first heard the concept, it intrigued and it worried me. As someone that prefers fantasy to basically all other genres of reading, there's always that very firm line where you dance between, is fantasy easier to accept than reality? And this book really makes you question that. It's very fitting for the month of July, for the summer seasons, and it holds a sort of ominous and ethereal quality that would make it a very excellent before bedtime read. This book is called The Wilderness of Girls by Madeline Clare Franklin, and it is a young adult novel that covers some very heavy topics. So before I begin the review, I would just like to cover the trigger warnings that the book itself highlights before you begin to read, which are Complex-PTSD, suicide and suicidal ideation, disordered eating, body shaming, family and domestic violence, emotional abuse, cannibalism, and sexual assault. This book does contain a lot of very heavy material, but it is done so in a very poignant and thematic way. One thing that is to be noted is the main character of this novel has experienced a lot of hardship herself, and it allows her to bond with the other main characters that I will introduce shortly. First and foremost, The Wilderness of Girls covers the fine line between trusting what you believe to be true and seeing for yourself what others might tell you to be different or to be wrong. It's about trusting your instincts and what happens when you can't do that anymore. What you've known for your whole life may need to be a lie, and how do you adapt? And is it truly easier to accept fantasy than face the reality of the situation you might be in? For a girl named Rye, formerly known as Eden in the beginning of the novel, her life changes drastically when her father is arrested for drug smuggling and money laundering, and she is sent away to live with her Uncle Jimmy, who is her deceased mother's younger brother. And he actually runs a wildlife preserve. She has grown up with her life very much thriving off of the fundamentals. Even though she lived a very posh and comfortable life, all things considered, she lacked comfort, familiarity, family bonds, any sort of love, or I guess real family would be the best way to put it. And after she moves to live with her Uncle Jimmy, for the first 2 months she settles in. She doesn't really make a lot of friends. She's used to being on her own. And while she does appreciate the very independent and survival-based nature of her new job, there's definitely still this feeling of disconnect. She gets a lot closer to her Uncle Jimmy, and she really does appreciate having that bond that she's lacked basically since her mother passed away. But still, there is this feeling that she has lost a part of herself, and she doesn't know how to get it back. When, upon working in the wildlife preserve one day, she comes across something extraordinary. 4 feral teenage girls living in the woods, being guarded by a pair of wolves. It is something out of a fantasy novel, out of a Tolkien book. And she helps one of them that is trapped in like a bear trap with her leg. She finds them, she calls for her uncle, and she takes them back to civilization where they can get medical, where they can get food, be looked after. They are shockingly well taken care of. They're a little underweight, but clearly they were doing fine out where they were. And they are all very well spoken, very concise. Their names are, as they put it, their names they were given are Oblivion, Verity, Sundar, and Epiphany. um, and these were the names that they said their mother gifted them. And upon learning more about it, they revealed that they are actually from a different land called Lutheria. And they are in fact princesses that have been sent here and basically not banished, but removed from their world to keep them safe, where they were supposed to live out their days in the woods until they were able to return to their land, rule again, once the prophecy was completed. And as Rai gets to know them more, they reveal that these girls believe Rai to be the prophesied lost fifth sister that they need to return back home to Lutheria. And of course, Rai feels bad for them. She knows they're delusional, and clearly must have gone through something absolutely harrowing to bond the way that they have. They all look very different too. She doesn't think that they're actually related by blood in any way, but they have found such a strong kinship in each other that she can't help but envy them. She's wanted something that strong her whole life, and she sees these girls, untamed and wild as they may be, they have what she's wanted for a really long time. And as she gets to know them, and as she tries to help them and heal them and learn more about them to see where they actually came from and who their families are and where they're supposed to be, the line between fantasy and reality starts to blur for her. They are so steadfast in their belief, so steadfast in their memories of Lutheria and the prophecy that their mother told them would come true when they lived in this giant tree in the woods for their protection, that she really does waver between wondering what is fantasy and what is truth. And even though she knows in the beginning what these girls tell her cannot be true, she definitely starts to, their belief starts to bleed into her, I must say. And it's interesting to see the narrative perspective change. You also change perspectives from reading from different characters, not only from Rai, but from the girls as well. And that also helps kind of put you into the mindset to understand where they're coming from and their history and how they view things. There are a lot of different genre elements at work in this novel. There is, like I said, fantasy and world building. The girls really make you believe in Lutheria, even though you yourself never see it and never step foot in it. There is a mystery and a thriller and a suspense aspect, because you know something terrible had to have happened to these girls to get them out here. You know they have not had it easy, and they have created this life to cope. They have created these stories because that's what they were told, and it was easier to believe that than to face what was really happening. And you have to follow along to figure out who these girls really are. Who brought them here? What was the point? How long had they been here? What was the reason of it all? Because there had to be a reason, right? And I think that's probably one of the most poignant aspects in this book, is there has to be a reason for everything. And sometimes when there just isn't, the mind fills in the gaps for you. We as humans don't like to leave things on a cliffhanger. We need there to be solutions, we need there to be a reason, we need the chapter to close. And when you are faced with the impossible, the only thing left to understand is the improbable. And sometimes this book really made me question a lot as I was reading it. I personally felt like I took a lot away from this book. As someone that, yes, loves fantasy and going to Ren fairs and those sort of events, it hurts, because this is a book where you so desperately want the magic to be real. You want this place to exist, you want these girls to be princesses, you want there to be a prophecy, because the nature of the situation is just too dark to want to be true. You don't really want to accept that everything that these girls have been through is the actual scenario. Magic is easier to believe in some cases, and this is one of them. By the end of the novel, I had a weight on my chest. I don't know if I can say I finished this book happily. It was an absolutely incredible book, and I highly recommend it, bearing in mind, of course, the content warnings for anyone that might be concerned about them. It was incredibly well done. The characters are all so unique, and the development from the first page to the last is breathtakingly done. And there is, unfortunately, no necessary fairy tale ending here. It is rough. It is sad. And it is something that we just have to accept. I really, really admire Madeline Clare Franklin's first debut novel. The Wilderness of Girls is unlike anything I've ever read. Because so many novels usually lead off with these people thinking they lead ordinary lives and finding out they are in fact extraordinary. But what happens when it's the opposite? What happens when you think everything you have, you're destined to be this person, these princesses living in a fantasy world where you know everything is going to be okay, is not true. It is a lie. How do you come to terms with it? And not only that, how do you come to terms with the actual harsh reality of how you got here? I recommend this book for almost any reader of any genre. As I said, the world building in fantasy is almost Tolkien based. The thriller and the suspense and the mystery aspect is as strong as any Holly Jackson. Bearing in mind, of course, like I said, the content warnings, which are pretty heavy. I recommend reading this, listening to the rain, with a good hot cup of tea, and keeping an open mind, because this book will change your opinions about a lot of things. I am looking forward to my next review in August, and I will be seeing you all very soon. Have a lovely rest of your summer, and until then, bye now.